You ever notice how the smallest things crack the loudest? Like the sound of your wife's wedding ring tapping against her wine glass while she laughs a little too hard at her phone with both kids in the room. Or how your 9-year-old asks, Mom, who's Jacob eggplant emoji, like he's reading from a children's book, and she freezes like a squirrel on a power line. Or when your teenage daughter suddenly starts calling your wife by her first name, as if she's quietly voting her off the island. My moment? It was a Tuesday morning when I found my razor missing. Not stolen, missing. Just gone. I looked where I always leave it, on the edge of the sink, perfectly parallel to the grout line because that's who I am. She used to call it OCD. I called it peace. And yet there it wasn't. In its place sat a cheap disposable Bic razor, blue plastic, hair stuck to it, dull as a butter knife. That wasn't mine. I stared at it too long, long enough to forget I had shaving cream burning down my neck. Long enough to remember she had mentioned waxing last week. So why was someone shaving in my bathroom? I asked casually over eggs, Hey, did you use my razor? And she blinked, said no, mouth twitching like a bad poker player. Then, too quickly, maybe the cleaning lady used it? We don't have a cleaning lady. We never did. But it wasn't rage that hit me, it was stillness, like being underwater. I finished my eggs, thanked her for breakfast, and helped the kids get ready for school. She kissed me on the cheek, lips cold. I watched her drive away from the upstairs window, the taillights blinking like a telling poker. That day, I started my plan, not for revenge, not yet, but for clarity. I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to let her tell the truth without saying a word. I started keeping track. Not stalking, just noticing. She started going out every Thursday for book club. Except she never came back with a book. And she always showered the moment she got home, before even saying hi to the kids. My son noticed at first. Mom smells like men's soap, he said one night. I almost laughed. That kid was sharper than he looked. Then came the Friday she left her phone on the charger, screen up, face down drunk from wine night with the girls. I wasn't snooping, I was tucking her in. But the screen lit up anyway. Jacob, I still smell like you. No emoji. No punctuation. Just those 6 words that stabbed through the dark like a dagger of cologne and sweat. I didn't touch it. Didn't respond. I just looked at her sleeping, mouth open, snoring like she had nothing to hide. And then I smiled. The next morning, I scheduled the first family therapy session for the kids' sake. She looked surprised, even guilty, but agreed. I told her it would help us communicate better, and she nodded like she believed me. I even let her pick the therapist. That was key, she needed to feel in control. Our kids were 9 and 14, old enough to sit in the room, to learn how to handle emotions, according to the brochure. I made sure the therapist was someone neutral, someone who asked a lot of open-ended questions. And I made sure to do just one thing in that room, tell the truth. Not the whole truth, not yet, just my version of it, half-lit, suggestive, careful. I said things like, I feel like there's a distance growing. Or, sometimes I sense you're emotionally elsewhere. The therapist nodded. My daughter crossed her arms. My son kicked his shoes off, uninterested. But then, during the 3rd session, the therapist asked her if she felt emotionally fulfilled in our marriage. And my wife said, honestly, no. The air got thin. My daughter turned toward her so sharply you could hear her neck pop. The therapist asked if she had looked for fulfillment elsewhere. My wife hesitated. Then she nodded. No tears. No shame. Just a small nod that cracked the floor open. My son's face dropped, confused. My daughter blinked slowly, lips pressed together, silent judgment in adolescent form. I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. The therapist guided the conversation gently, but the words were already out. Like a bullet. Like a disease. My daughter didn't speak for the rest of the session. My son asked if we were getting divorced. My wife looked at me, silently begging for a lifeline. I looked at the therapist and said, that's something we'll need to discuss, privately. I saw the shift in my daughter's eyes that day. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't shock. It was respect, evaporating. That's when I knew. I didn't have to destroy her. I just had to let her speak. She would do the rest herself. At first, it still looked like the life people envy: 2 kids, a wife who smiled in public, a nice home with a well-tended lawn that she used to care about. I'd catch her humming sometimes in the mornings, bare feet on the tile as she made coffee, sun catching in her hair like it used to when we first met. She still called me babe, still leaned her head on my shoulder during movies, still laughed at my terrible jokes when the kids were around. And I believed it. God help me, I believed it. Because belief is easier than suspicion, and love makes you blind in just the right spots. But then things started changing, Not loudly, not dramatically, just wrong. Like coming home one evening and finding all the furniture in the living room rearranged without explanation, as if someone else had moved through the space. Or her suddenly needing walks after dinner, every night, sometimes for hours, alone. She said it was for mental clarity. I told her I understood. I wanted to understand. But I never knew where she walked. She started reading books about self-discovery and emotional realignment, and one night I found her scribbling something in a notebook, and when I asked what it was, she said, "Just some journaling exercises my therapist gave me." Therapist? She had never mentioned a therapist. When I asked about that, she said, "It's something I needed to do on my own." I hope you respect that. Respect. That word started slipping into every conversation like a knife under the table. Boundaries. Growth. Space. All the new buzzwords that sounded like progress but felt like eviction. I began to notice how she never quite looked me in the eye anymore. Not fully. Her smiles were automatic, polite, like customer service. And she started dressing differently. Not for me, God no, not anymore, but for someone. Her clothes got tighter, her makeup bolder, but only when she was going to the gym or meeting the girls. I once asked if I could come along. She blinked and said, "I think it's good for us to have separate experiences." That's healthy. She started locking her phone, not just locking, but turning the screen away whenever I walked into the room. She said it was about protecting her privacy, as if I'd ever violated it. I began to feel like a guest in my own home, like I had to knock before entering conversations. One morning, I went to get something from her car. She had left the groceries in the trunk and asked me to carry them in, and I found a receipt wedged between the seats for a lunch at a place I knew she'd never go voluntarily. Expensive, hipster, meat-heavy, she hated all three. It was dated on a Tuesday afternoon when she had told me she was working through lunch. I didn't say anything. I folded the receipt and put it in my wallet. Just another thread in the growing tapestry of dissonance. Her social media changed too, subtly at first. She unfollowed mutual friends, made her accounts private, stopped tagging me in anything. When I asked about it, she laughed it off. "It's just algorithms, babe. You know how tech is." But I did know. And I knew something else. She had started treating our family calendar like a battle plan. Things would appear, dinners, meetings, retreats, without discussion, just dropped in like facts. I'd ask what a certain event was, and she'd wave it off. "Oh, just something for work." Work, which now seemed to involve late nights, weekend calls, and colleagues with names I had never heard before. She stopped asking how my day was. Stopped touching me when she passed behind my chair. There was one day, that I came home early, hoping to surprise her, and found her sitting in the kitchen staring out the window with a look I hadn't seen before. It was serenity, not peace, the kind of serenity that comes from knowing something others don't. I kissed her on the cheek, and she flinched just slightly, enough for me to feel it in my bones. But still, I didn't push. I told myself this was a phase, that maybe I wasn't doing enough, being enough, giving enough. That maybe she needed this distance to come back home stronger. And I tried. I planned a weekend getaway. She said she had a workshop. I made her favorite dinner. She said she already ate. I wrote her a card, just a stupid little note about how proud I was of her, how much I loved the family we built. She smiled when she read it, folded it, and placed it in a drawer like a piece of junk mail. "That was sweet," she said, and then went upstairs. I stayed there, at the dinner table, staring at the flickering candle I had lit for ambience like some idiot out of a Hallmark movie. The cracks weren't cracks anymore. They were gaps, openings, voids, places where love had lived, but now only echoes remained. And still, I said nothing. Because I hadn't caught her doing anything. Because love, when it dies slowly, doesn't scream, it just slips out the back door and leaves the front wide open. It was the laughter that did it, not the sound itself, but the timing. Late Thursday night, nearly midnight, and I was lying in bed alone, eyes on the ceiling, listening to the house breathe. She was catching up on emails downstairs, or so she said. The kids were long asleep. The hallway was dark. And then I heard it, this low, intimate laugh. Not loud. Not performative. The kind of laugh that doesn't need an audience. I stayed still, barely breathing. Then I slipped out of bed and walked to the top of the stairs. I didn't make a sound. I didn't have to. She was in the living room, sitting on the couch, her laptop open but untouched. Her phone was in her hand, speakerphone off, and she was curled into the corner of the cushions like a teenager on a secret call. Her voice dropped to this soft, sing-song pitch I hadn't heard in years. Flirty. Light. Vulnerable. She giggled again and said, "Stop it. I'm blushing." Blushing. I stood there in the shadows, watching her from behind the railing. Her head was tilted, her eyes glowing with the kind of joy that used to be mine. I couldn't hear the words on the other end, but I didn't need to. The way she bit her lips said more than enough. The way she whispered, "You're too much," like she was sipping it off a wine glass, I knew. She was no longer mine. Hadn't been for a while. In the moment I accepted that, something inside me went silent. Not dead, just surgical, precise. I felt no rage, no despair, just clarity. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I simply turned around, walked back to bed, and stared at the ceiling like it was a chessboard. The contours of her betrayal weren't abstract anymore. They were topography, mapped, measured, ready to be navigated. A minute later, she came upstairs, humming, slid into bed beside me like everything was fine, kissed my shoulder, her lips still warm from another man's words. I didn't move, didn't flinch. I waited. She fell asleep within minutes, breathing deep, guiltless, tangled in the sheets of the man she thought too passive to notice. But I saw everything now. The shift wasn't emotional. It was mechanical. From that moment, I moved differently. I timed her calls. I mapped her routine. I synced our devices through the cloud she didn't know I still had access to. I took screenshots, copied texts, tracked GPS logs she never disabled. I didn't search for pain. I searched for proof. And it came easy. She'd grown careless, arrogant. She thought I was soft, that I'd cling to dignity and keep the family image intact, no matter what. But I was no longer in that game. I was building something else, a quiet reckoning. Every lie she told me was cataloged. Every hour unaccounted for was documented. I started a folder. Nothing labeled with her name, of course. Just dates, times, patterns. She had no idea. Still smiled at breakfast. Still posted filtered family selfies with hollow captions like grateful and blessed. She even started being nicer to me, like guilt made her generous. Or maybe fear. Maybe she sensed something under my silence, but couldn't place it. That's what made it beautiful. She thought the worst had passed, that the distance between us was just emotional fatigue, that I was too weary to fight. But I wasn't tired. I was waiting. The silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. And as I lay there beside her that night, listening to her sleep peacefully after whispering to another man that she was still figuring things out, I didn't hate her. I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted her to see. See what she gave up. See what she lost. Not in court. Not in screaming matches. But through the eyes of her own children. Through the slow, surgical collapse of the mask she wore so proudly. And I would give her that chance. Because the most brutal betrayals aren't delivered by fists or fury. They're delivered in silence. In moments where you don't even realize the war has already started. I didn't need a confrontation. I needed clarity. Not just that she was cheating, but how, when, and how often. I wasn't going to destroy her with guesswork. I wanted the blueprints of the entire lie. So I started moving differently. Quiet. Purposeful. I set up a hidden cloud sync on the old iPad she let the kids use for school. It was still connected to her Apple ID, still backing up her photos and notes without her knowing. I disabled all notifications, muted every sound, and began receiving quiet packages of her digital life in real time. Every selfie, every calendar reminder, every half-deleted text. I watched them pour in like breadcrumbs, each one leading deeper into the forest. I never checked it when she was home, only during lunch breaks, bathroom moments, or while she was in the shower. She started going to the gym more often, but her gym bag never came back with sweat. So I left a small folded note inside, just a post-it with my handwriting. I know. Then I waited. She never mentioned it. Just swapped the gym bag out for a new one the next day. That confirmed it. She had seen it, and said nothing. Guilt had entered the chat. I checked our shared bank account, the one we used for joint purchases, and noticed several small transactions, $9.75 here, $13.50 there, repeatedly tied to a gas station that wasn't on her usual route, always around 1 p.m. on days she worked from home. I drove there one day, parked across the lot, and just watched. Nothing happened. Then, 2 days later, I went again, same time. This time, a black Honda pulled in beside me, and she stepped out. Not in yoga pants. Not in work clothes. Something new. She didn't pump gas. Just got in the Honda with someone else, tall, balding, mid-40s, sunglasses, confidence. They drove off. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I'd already placed a tile tracker inside her keychain. Not GPS, but close enough. I watched her location stop at a motel 15 minutes away. Not even a good one. A place we used to joke about being for drug deals and quickies. And there she was. I took a screenshot. Dated it. Logged it. That night, she came home smelling like citrus soap, claiming the gym showers had broken and she'd had to go to her friend's place to clean up. I nodded. Asked if she wanted me to order dinner. She smiled, relieved, thinking she got away with it. I told her I'd get her favorite, Thai curry. She hated curry. She always had. But this time, she said, that sounds perfect. That was another lie. Another brick in the case I was building, not just against her, but for the kids. She'd been seeing someone, probably for months. Maybe longer. But she wasn't careful. Not really. Not when you knew how to look. Her phone, for example, she'd changed the lock code, but she'd forgotten the kid's iPad mirrored her notes app. That's how I found the draft of a message that read, I can't keep living a double life. I need to tell him soon. Dated 3 weeks ago. She never sent it. She never told me. But the thought was there. The guilt was growing roots. So I made it grow faster. I staged a few accidental moments, leaving the calendar open on the kitchen tablet, showing a fake event I created. Meeting with divorce lawyer, 3 p.m. Tuesday. I watched her eyes catch it one morning, just for a flicker, then glance away. Her mouth twitched, but she didn't ask. That afternoon, she left work early. Not for a meeting. Tile showed her parked outside a wine bar for 2 hours. Probably with him. Probably telling him things I was supposed to hear first. I didn't care. Let him feel like the hero in her mess. Let her think she still had control. But I kept going. I called her best friend, one day, the one she always used as cover, and casually thanked her for helping my wife through all this emotional stuff lately. There was a pause. A long one. Then her friend said, yeah, she told me it's been hard on you both. I asked, did she mention the therapy? The friend hesitated again. Not really. That told me everything. She hadn't shared the same story with everyone. She was juggling lies, inconsistently. Even worse, she underestimated me. I knew then I didn't need to expose her directly. I needed to let her own contradictions destroy her. I started setting trap questions, little logic puzzles she couldn't wiggle out of. Didn't you say you had dinner with Rachel last night? I'd ask casually. Because she just posted from Miami. Watching her blink through the excuse was better than any confession. It wasn't about catching her. It was about documenting her. Watching her hang herself with the slack I kept giving. Because soon, I would need to make only one move, just one, and the whole house of cards would collapse. But not yet. Not until I was certain the kids would see the truth, not through my words, but through her unraveling. And when they did, she wouldn't just lose a marriage, she'd lose her mask. And once that mask came off, she'd never be able to put it back on again. It was her company's annual charity auction, a black tie event held in the ballroom of a boutique downtown hotel, the kind of place with candles on every table and a jazz trio playing softly in the corner, where people wore expensive smiles and cheap integrity. She wore red, of course. She always wore red to things like this. Said it gave her confidence. Said it made her feel powerful. I wore black. Classic. Controlled. We arrived together, posed for photos like the power couple everyone still believed we were, and mingled with the crowd as if the ground beneath us wasn't already splitting open. She was radiant, sociable, laughing at every third joke, sipping wine like a woman untouched by consequence. I stayed quiet, smiling just enough. I had asked the event coordinator, someone I knew through work, to help me with one small request. Do you have a projector? I'd asked. Just 5 seconds during the slideshow. No sound. Just one photo. He agreed. Didn't ask questions. People rarely do when you ask calmly and offer a check. So as we sat at the table, surrounded by her coworkers and senior executives, sipping champagne and complimenting entrees, the lights dimmed for the fundraising presentation. She leaned over and whispered something in my ear, some inside joke she thought would remind me of who we once were. I smiled. Then the screen lit up. First came the usual slides, photos of community service, employees handing out canned goods, her boss speaking at a podium. Then came my slide. Just 5 seconds. A picture I'd taken 2 weeks ago. Her. In a car. Parked outside a roadside motel. Her hand in his lap. His hand around the back of her neck. Their mouths an inch apart. The timestamp in the corner. The hotel's neon sign blurry but legible in the background. It passed quickly, just a flicker in the stream of philanthropy. But I saw her spine straighten. I saw the wine glass tremble slightly in her hand. I didn't look at her. I just took another sip of champagne. She didn't say anything until after dessert. Waited until we were alone in the hallway near the restrooms, the noise of the party muffled behind the doors. What the hell was that? She hissed, voice low but tight. I looked at her. Really looked. Proof, I said. One word. She flinched. It's not what you think, she started. I starting. Classic opening move. Then explain what I saw. My tone was calm. Flat. Like I was asking about the weather. We were just talking with your tongue. I asked, tilting my head slightly. It was a mistake, she said next, softer, a practiced vulnerability creeping in. It didn't mean anything. It was stupid. It was repeated, I corrected. Her eyes widened. I know about the Thursdays. The gas station. The motel. The text messages. The notes you deleted. The one you never sent. Her mouth opened, then shut. You were spying on me? No, I said evenly. I was watching. There's a difference. Spying is for suspicion. Watching is for certainty. She scoffed then, a flash of defiance sparking back into her expression. You were never there for me. Emotionally. You were always so distant. Cold. I wasn't cold, I replied. I was calm. And you confused calm with indifference because you needed an excuse. Her nostrils flared. You don't get to moralize now. You were never perfect either. I never claimed to be, I said. But I stayed. I showed up. I kept the family whole while you played two lives like a game of dress-up. Her voice rose then, frustration cracking through. You don't understand what it's like feeling invisible. You don't get to judge me. Oh, I do, I said. Not because I'm better, but because I watched you smile in our children's faces, knowing you'd just come back from someone else's bed. And now they'll see it too. Her lips parted, just a bit. What do you mean? There it was fear. Small, uncertain, blooming like mold. I didn't have to tell them anything, I continued. They see your patterns. They felt the cold. They hear you laughing more on the phone than you do with them. Kids notice. They're not stupid. They're just quiet. She stepped back, arms folded like armor. This is low, even for you. No, I said. This is measured. You handed me the hammer. I'm just building the gallows. She stared at me then, something shifting behind her eyes, something unraveling. The confidence cracked. The sarcasm faded. What was left was raw, panicked calculation. So what now? She whispered. That's the part one haven't decided yet, I answered. You see, unlike you, I don't rush into things. I like to know exactly how deep the blade will go before I twist it. Her breath hitched. Behind us, the sound of jazz picked back up as the ballroom doors opened and more guests filtered into the hallway. The illusion of normalcy tried to wrap itself around us again, but it was too late. She was exposed. Not just to me. To herself. The moment stretched between us like piano wire, tight, quiet, deadly. And I didn't move. Not yet. I wanted her to sit in it. Let it soak into her skin. Let her feel the weight of the mask slipping off in front of the very people she once fooled so well. She followed me out of the hotel, heels clacking on the marble floor like gunshots, voice sharp with panic disguised as rage. So that's it, she snapped. You think you get to humiliate me and walk away like some silent martyr? I didn't answer. I just held the door for her and stepped into the night air, calm, centered, the chaos behind me. Say something, she hissed, grabbing my arm. I looked at her, and she let go. You don't get to play the victim now, she continued, her voice rising as we reached the car. You were never present. Never real. You were like a shadow in this marriage. Do you know how lonely that was? I opened the door for her. Didn't say a word. She didn't get in. Don't do that silent crap, not now. You want to be the cold one? Fine. But you're not blameless. You smothered me with your routines, your perfect image, your quiet judgment. You made me feel small. I finally looked at her and said, you did that all by yourself. She blinked like I'd slapped her. You always made me feel like I wasn't enough, she shouted. Like I had to earn basic affection. I tilted my head. So you earned it from someone else instead. Her mouth twisted. Don't turn this around on me. You have no idea what it's like being with someone who never feels anything. You were robotic. Predictable. Safe. I needed more. I nodded once. And now you have less. Her voice cracked. You think you're better than me, don't you? No, I said. Just cleaner. That did it. Her composure shattered. She stepped in front of me, blocking the door. This wouldn't have happened if you were a real man. She snapped, eyes wild now, spitting the venom she'd kept just below the surface. I didn't even flinch. I just looked at her and said, Real men don't have to beg to be betrayed. Her lips quivered, rage giving way to something else. You're just pathetic, she said. You didn't fight for me. You didn't chase me. No, I said. I watched you run into traffic and made sure the kids weren't with you when the car hit. Her hands clenched into fists. You've always been this smug, haven't you? Cold, calculating. You care more about control than connection. No, I said calmly. I just don't negotiate with cowards. She was shaking now. You're so goddamn self-righteous. Acting like you're above it all. But guess what? You're not. You're broken. You're incapable of real emotion. That's why I left you in my head long before I ever touched him. Then why are you still screaming for me to see you? I asked. She had no answer. Just heavy breathing and a look in her eyes that finally admitted it. She was cornered. Not by me. By herself. She turned away, paced 3 steps, then spun back. So what? You're done? Just like that? After years of marriage? After everything? You ended this, I said. I'm just cleaning up your mess. And the kids, she snapped. You going to turn them against me too? I don't need to, I said. They already feel it. You bastard, she whispered, and for the first time, it wasn't angry, it was defeated. She was unraveling. Every trick she'd mastered, guilt, seduction, manipulation, rage, none of them worked anymore. She couldn't touch me. I wasn't there emotionally. I wasn't playing. I wasn't even reacting. I had become the one thing she couldn't fight: indifference. Not apathy, not spite. Just pure, measured detachment. I hate you, she said finally, eyes glassy, voice cracking. Then I guess we're even, I said, because I don't feel anything for you at all. That broke her. She turned her back to me and walked slowly toward the car, heels suddenly dragging like shackles, the night air heavy with silence. And I just stood there, calm, composed, untouchable. The man she used to control was gone. The man who now stood before her was something she couldn't manipulate, couldn't guilt, couldn't crack. And that scared her more than anything else in the world. I didn't strike back immediately. Revenge like this demands time, timing, and complete emotional silence. So while she wandered the house pretending we still had a future, I became a ghost in plain sight, orchestrating the quiet collapse of her life with the same hands that used to hold her. The first move was digital containment. I'd already mirrored her phone through the cloud, but now I copied every message, every photo, every timestamped location into an encrypted drive stored offsite. Insurance. Then I revoked her access to our shared storage accounts, changed every password she didn't even know I still controlled, from Netflix to our family cloud, locking her out of the very digital history she helped poison. Phase 2 was financial. While she was busy meeting friends in yoga pants and fresh lipstick, I visited the bank. Calm, courteous, professional. I opened a new account in my name only, quietly shifted my direct deposits and savings, and pulled out half of our joint balance, just under the legal threshold that would raise red flags. I froze the credit cards we shared and ordered replacements under my name. The next day she tried to order takeout, declined. She asked me if something was wrong with the card. I shrugged. Must be the bank. You should call them. I had already called. I moved utilities into my name, one by one, and set disconnection dates for everything else. The internet, the phone line, even her gym membership, which she never realized was being paid from our joint account. Gone. She called them the next day. I saw the call on the phone bill before she could even mention it. Her confusion was delicious. I didn't gloat. I just kept moving. I contacted a lawyer next, one I'd quietly vetted through a friend months earlier. We met discreetly in a coffee shop 3 towns over, and I laid out everything: the evidence, the timeline, the goals. Full custody. Financial control. No spousal support. Everything built not on anger, but precision. He smiled. Said I'd done most of his job for him. We filed under irreconcilable differences, with an attachment that included documentation of adultery, not for moral leverage, but for custody advantage. My kids deserved better. And I made sure every motion was timed to land on the same day. One packet to her work email, where she'd be sitting in meetings. One to her personal account. One delivered to our home by courier while she showered. I watched her read it in a towel, dripping onto the tile. No words. Just her lips moving silently. I didn't say a thing. Just handed her a pen. She didn't sign. Not yet. So I turned the pressure. I messaged her parents, not an angry rant, not blame. Just a clean, chronological breakdown of what had happened, supported by date-stamped screenshots. Her mother replied within an hour, "We're so sorry. Please let us know how we can help you and the kids." Her father sent one line, I raised her better than this. Then I moved to her friends. Not all, just the 3 closest. Each got their own tailored email. No mass blasts. No drama. Just the facts and a simple closing line. I don't expect you to choose sides. I just want you to know the truth before the stories start. 2 never replied. 1 sent a message back. I always had a feeling. The silence from her side grew heavier. Then came the final blow, her job. She worked for a mid-sized firm in a public-facing role, where personal branding mattered. I didn't accuse her of misconduct. That would have made it easy to dismiss me. Instead, I sent a professional, concise email to her HR department. No insults. Just a note that someone in a senior client-facing role may be using company time and resources for personal affairs, with attachments to her call logs, midday motel visits, and texts sent during business hours. I never heard back. I didn't need to. 2 weeks later, she received a warning and was put under review. She cried in the living room while holding the letter. I kept chopping vegetables. She tried to bring the kids into it next. Told them Daddy was trying to break up the family. My daughter asked her, "Why did you kiss someone else then?" My son refused to hug her goodbye for school. The air turned cold, not because I made it that way, but because her mask was off, and the kids could finally see. I never once raised my voice. Never once slammed a door. She still thought she had time to fix it, to cry, to guilt, to beg, but time had already run out. Every string she thought she could pull had already been cut. And all that was left now was the fall. It happened at her niece's birthday party, an innocent, suburban Saturday gathering filled with balloons, juice boxes, and the kind of synthetic joy that clings to backyard barbecues. She hadn't wanted to go, had even tried to get out of it, claiming she wasn't feeling well, but I insisted. Said it would be good for the kids. Said her family would miss her. The truth was they already knew. All of them. I'd sent the files a week earlier. Every screenshot, every photo, every timestamped motel visit, every sweet nothing she'd whispered through typed messages while lying beside me in bed. No commentary. Just a Google Drive folder titled The Other Life. Her mother hadn't responded. Her father had. A short, cold message. "We'll see you both at the party." So we arrived together, dressed nicely, well-rehearsed. She wore makeup heavier than usual, her smile tight, performance ready. The kind of look people wear when they know a storm is coming, but they're still pretending the umbrella isn't broken. The moment we stepped into the yard, the air shifted. Conversations paused just long enough to notice, eyes turned quickly away, and the kind of silence that cuts deeper than shouting filled the space between hello and goodbye. Her sister greeted me warmly, hugged me longer than she ever had before, then turned to my wife and simply nodded. No hug. No smile. Not even a "thanks for coming." My wife laughed it off, said something about allergies, and walked toward the drink table like nothing was wrong. But I saw it in her hands, the twitch, the micro trimmer, and the way she gripped the solo cup. I stood by the grill, chatting with her uncle, who used to ignore me at every family function. Now he offered me a beer, patted my shoulder, called me a good man. Her aunt gave me her number, in case you ever need anything with the kids. My wife kept looking over, her smile shrinking with every glance. Then it happened. The slideshow. Just a quick photo montage for the birthday girl, family photos, baby pictures, silly moments, but someone in the family had gotten creative. Or maybe just vengeful. Because right in the middle of the Disney songs and cake-smudged faces, a single image flashed. Not inappropriate. Not explicit. Just damning. Her, leaning against a motel door, hair a mess, lipstick smudged, her lover's face partly visible beside her. A candid shot from a distance, one I hadn't taken but someone had, maybe a neighbor, maybe karma. There was a pause in the crowd, a split-second confusion. Then gasps. Then a child asking, "Is that Annie?" She froze. Her plastic smile shattered. She stepped forward, tried to laugh, made some joke about a weird old picture, but her voice cracked halfway through and no one laughed with her. Her father stood up, walked to the speaker, and turned off the music. Then he faced her and said, "You've embarrassed all of us." Just that. Flat. Final. She looked around, reaching for someone, anyone, but every set of eyes turned away. Her best friend, the one she always used as a cover story, walked past her without a word and gave me a hug. My wife tried to speak, to explain, to redirect the narrative like she always had, but every attempt came out jagged and pathetic. It wasn't serious. We were having problems. He knew. He just didn't care. Lies she convinced herself were true. But they weren't landing anymore. No one was listening. Her niece tugged at her mom's sleeve and whispered something that made the woman pull the child closer, shielding her. My wife stood alone in a crowd of people she thought would always defend her. Her hands shook now. Her mouth opened and closed without sound. Her mask, the one she wore so well, slipped fully off her face and revealed what she really was underneath, lost, scared, exposed. She turned to me then, as if I might still offer a life raft, a single glance of solidarity. But I just watched. Calm. Silent. Still. My children were playing with cousins in the background, unaware of the adult chaos. I made sure they wouldn't see this part, not yet. My wife's eyes filled, not with guilt, but with sheer, unfiltered panic. Her world was disintegrating in real time, and she knew it wasn't going to stop. Not this hour. Not this week. Not this year. The people she'd leaned on, lied to, confided in, they were gone. Her lover hadn't shown up either. I'd told him everything in a short message the night before. She's not exclusive. Ask her about the others. He never replied. Never would. She was alone. Truly, deeply, unmistakably alone. And I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to shame. I just stood at the edge of her ruin, a quiet witness to the collapse she built with her own hands. And she saw me. Saw that I saw everything. And that was what destroyed her. It exploded at her sister's housewarming party, a gathering packed wall to wall with people who used to adore her, still pretending to smile at her through the weight of what they now knew. The air was thick with fake cheer and brittle small talk, the kind that shatters if you press too hard. I was standing near the drinks table when I heard her voice, sharp and desperate, behind me. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Every conversation in the room paused, slowly orbiting toward the sound like planets pulled by gravity. I turned, slowly, and met her eyes. I think I'm honest, I said, loud enough for the room. Which is something you never learned to be. She marched up, her face already flushed, whether from wine or rage, I couldn't tell. You don't get to stand here and act like a saint. You don't get to destroy my life and play the victim. Gasps floated around the room, like whispers with teeth. Her mother was standing behind the couch, visibly pale, her father stiff with shame. My brother stepped forward slightly, unsure if he needed to intervene. Destroy your life? I repeated, smiling bitterly. You mean the one you wrecked when you decided your vows were suggestions? She scoffed, loud and shrill. Oh, here we go. The noble husband act. Tell them. Go ahead, tell them how cold you were. How distant. How you treated me like furniture that cooked. I treated you like a partner. I snapped, stepping closer, the heat rising now. I gave you everything: time, trust, a home, children. And you sold it all for motel room quickies with a man who couldn't even look me in the eye. Because he doesn't owe you anything. She shouted, hands shaking now. You were boring. Predictable. I was drowning, and you just stood there like I didn't even exist. No, I said, my voice rising now, the silence around us tight as wire. I stood there watching you fake happiness. Watching you lie to our kids, to your family, to yourself. I stayed while you tore this house apart in slow motion, hoping you'd stop. But you didn't. Because it felt good, didn't it? To be wanted. To pretend you were still some mystery instead of a coward. Her face twisted. I made a mistake. No, I cut her off, voice hard, unrelenting. A mistake is spilling coffee. You chose this. You planned this. You lied to our children. You smiled at me with another man's mouth still on you. That's not a mistake. That's who you are. She stepped back, as if physically struck, and then spun around to the crowd, her voice cracking, desperate now. You're all just eating this up, aren't you? You all think he's some kind of hero. He's not. He's manipulative. He made me feel small. Her father spoke, finally quiet, but sharp. You did that to yourself. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Her friend, used to be friend, shook her head and said, You lied to me, too. You used me. I had to. She cried, breaking completely now, mascara starting to smudge. I didn't have anyone to talk to. You had me, I said, my voice calm again, steady as a blade. You just didn't like what I saw in you. You're smug, she spat, rage bubbling back. Always judging, always calculating. You never made me feel alive. No, I said, nodding. I made you feel seen. And you hated that. Her lover stepped out from the hallway, trying to sneak away through the back, but someone saw him. That's him, a cousin muttered. Cameras were out now. Phones angled. The shame turned viral. Someone shouted, Smile for the montage, and the room cracked with gasps and awkward chuckles. She turned to me one last time, eyes wild, pleading now. Please, don't do this in front of them. You already did, I said. You just didn't think they'd notice. And then I turned, slowly, and walked out the front door. She didn't follow. Couldn't. She stood there in the wreckage of her carefully crafted image, exposed, broken, humiliated, surrounded by people who finally saw her without the costume. Her voice didn't rise again. She didn't scream. She just stood there, alone, and watched me leave with everything she lost and would never touch again. 3 months later, she was unrecognizable, like a ghost someone had dressed up in borrowed skin, trying to pass as the woman I once knew. Her job didn't last a week after the party. HR called it an unfortunate optics issue, and her boss, the same one she once flirted with over conference lunches, couldn't even make eye contact when she packed her things. Word spread, as it always does. Emails leaked, screenshots got forwarded, and the carefully curated image she built shattered like glass dropped on marble. Her professional network shrank to dust overnight. Old friends stopped liking her posts, messages stopped being returned, invitations disappeared. She tried to get ahead of the narrative, posted a long, thinly veiled rant on social media about narcissistic spouses and healing from years of neglect, but it backfired. The comment section turned on her. People she hadn't spoken to in years told her she needed help. Others reminded her of who I was, what I did for the family, how I never spoke badly about her even after the truth came out. She deleted her accounts a week later. She moved out of town quietly, like a criminal slipping away after a heist gone wrong. The city was too small now, too loud with memories she couldn't outrun. I heard she took a job at a local retail store in another county, something that wouldn't ask too many questions or demand a resume with holes. She told her parents she needed space, but really, they had already told her they were done. Her father didn't answer her calls. Her mother told her she was ashamed. Her sister blocked her on everything. Even her cousins stopped inviting her to family events. The last time she saw her kids, they hugged her politely, but neither of them cried when she left. That was the part that really broke her, the silence of children who had already mourned the mother they thought they had. And then came the message. Simple, plain, sent at 2:14 a.m. on a random Wednesday. I still love you. I made a mistake. Please talk to me. I stared at the screen for 5 long minutes. Then I typed back, strange. I don't even remember your name anymore. She didn't reply. Not then. Not for weeks. Then, one evening, as the sky bled orange through the kitchen window, she came to the house, our old house, uninvited, eyes swollen, face gaunt, like regret had hollowed her out. She stood at the doorstep trembling, holding a cheap bottle of wine and some folders she probably thought would prove she'd changed. Can I come in? She asked, voice hoarse. I looked past her to the driveway, empty, just her. No audience this time. No performance. Just a woman who finally understood what irreversible meant. I just need 5 minutes, she whispered. To say I'm sorry. To say I didn't realize what I had. I stared at her, quiet, still. The man who once would have pulled her into his arms now stood like a wall. There's nothing left to say, I told her. The version of me who needed that apology died the day you laughed in his face. I wasn't laughing at you, she said, tears spilling now. I was scared. I was stupid. I didn't think you'd ever leave. You didn't think at all, I said. You just acted. And now here you are. Hoping sorry can build a time machine. She stepped forward, hand raised. Please, don't do this. I'm still me. I looked her in the eyes and gave her the truth. That's the problem. Then I closed the door. No anger. No slamming. Just the sound of finality. And on the other side, I heard her sob, deep, broken, helpless sobs of someone who finally understood that some bridges aren't burned, they're vaporized. To everyone listening, thanks for walking through the wreckage with me. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop it in the comments below. And tell me, did you enjoy the story? Or more importantly, did she deserve what she got?